Live 95 recently reported on an issue in Castletroy. We know we need affordable housing, we know we need affordable rental, but we came across a situation in the Castletroy area where approved housing bodies were purchasing in bulk new developments that were being built on private lands, basically. Do you think that we're getting into a situation where approved housing bodies now are actually in competition with private buyers?
Yes, that has been the case, and I know Castletroy well. I used to live down there. I lived in Plassey Village, so I know that neighbourhood very well, albeit from many years ago. Yes, I mean when supply is so tight, it by definition you have not just approved housing bodies, but the wider population who are looking for a home pitched against each other. It's about supply. It's about producing more. The approved housing bodies, by the way, have to provide more and more social housing. We need that. We need strong public provision. But we also have to have this situation where buyers, people who want to purchase their own home, actually have a fair chance at that at an affordable price. So again, this comes back to get your targets right, get your resourcing right, get your decision-making processes, whether it's procurement, whether it's planning, all of that now needs to be overhauled, properly resourced, and we need to now start moving at pace. By the way, I also think that we need to look at scaling up new technologies. A lot of the houses of the future, much of the construction will be done off-site. That's going to be a really exciting and very carbon efficient way of building homes. But yeah, I hear that dilemma. You know, people are, you're doing your best, you're out of work. If you're fortunate enough to put aside a deposit, and that's a really big challenge, and then you find yourself in a marketplace that's just starved of supply. I'm very, very sympathetic to that experience because I hear it every day.
What about we've seen today Peter McVerry, who would also be an approved housing body, with projects in Limerick saying that, their 500 houses that they're due to be building potentially are in question now. Is this an example of us putting all of our ducks into the approved housing basket and putting pressure on them, growing too fast, and then they find that they're not able to actually deliver what they said they would?
Yeah, well, so without commenting specifically on the McVerry situation, it is true to say that we have expected a lot of approved housing bodies and other agencies that work with people in housing distress, whether it's homeless families or people facing the threat of eviction in rental accommodation, and we haven't always resourced them properly. The state needs to step up and build capacity and resources, and part of that capacity is also good governance. Obviously, when you're spending public money, you have to have transparency, you have to have delivery. So it's a mixed basket. But overall, can I just say, I take my hat off to everybody working in the approved housing agencies, working with families in distress who can't find a home, people who have either the threat or the reality of an eviction. And that's a lot of people across our society. These are deeply traumatic circumstances. And I think it's important to acknowledge the staff that deal with and support people on a human level through this traumatic human experience. Now, we need a government that matches that effort.
We're here in a regeneration area, one of 4 regenerations areas in Limerick City. I mean, looking at a 10-year anniversary and of flooding that happened 10 years ago, and looking at a community like St. Mary's Park, but there is the possibility they've been let down in terms of the infrastructure that's here. What would you do tomorrow to address the future so these people here are not consistently saying they're being let down?
Well, the first thing is the matter of flood defence. I mean, we're almost 10 years on, and what was promised, the local people have told me repeatedly promised by government, has not been delivered. That needs to happen now. We all know we're facing a climate emergency. We know that we will face and live the consequences of that climate emergency. We saw episodes of flooding across the island in recent times. This community needs to be protected from that prospect. I think also there is a job in supporting this incredible community in what they do best, and that is developing their own community capacity. I am horrified to hear that Mary's Aid, that funding is under question, that there is even the prospect at the end of this year that funding will be pulled, that the community development project is facing into a cut of 50% or more. The money that you invest in community is the smartest, wisest money that any government and that the state will ever spend, because you support young people, older people, community endeavour for mental health, for people's physical well-being and for the well-being of the community. And it's small money. You know, these are small investments in the bigger scheme of things, but they are essential, particularly at a time when our population is growing, our population is more diverse. It is sensible, not just desirable, really sensible to invest in communities. So I've been speaking with Maurice Quinlivan, with Paul Gavin, with others, with our councillors here in Limerick, and we are going to obviously take a stand against pulling funding from these vital projects.
Just a couple of more questions. One would be along the lines, and again relating to this part of the city, criminality, antisocial behaviour, drug dealing. Are we at risk, if we don't nip this stuff in the bud, of returning to a time in Limerick that we do not want to return to?
Well, absolutely. And let me just say, because I was a student here back in the day when the reputation of Limerick, it seemed, was a bad one. I lived here. I never experienced anything other than an incredible city. I loved living here. And actually, when I was younger, again, my mother's from Tip, so on the big days out to the big city would have been a trip to Limerick City. This is an amazing city. But like any city, it needs care and attention. And like any population and any set of communities, you need to have support. We're people. And all of the things that emerge, all of the dilemmas around addiction, criminality, as you have said, all of those things need to be addressed. So what does that mean? It means that you have adequate investment in the Gardaí, of course, community Gardaí, I think in particular. But I come back again to the issue of investment in our young, in youth work, in developing people, supporting people. I think given the choice, this is my belief of human nature, given the choice of doing the right thing or wrong things, 99.9% of the population will do what's right and what is good if you have that opportunity. So let's give our communities and our societies those opportunities, and let no Limerick person ever just meekly accept anything that badmouths this great city. That's my view and my experience, by the way, of Limerick.
Carry, an important charity that is based in Limerick with their headquarters here, announced this week that they are in need of serious government funding in order to continue the work that they do. They're facing imminent closure by December if the government don't produce funding. Is this something that's on your radar, and is it something that behind the scenes you think might be addressed by Christmas and not have us lose a charity that is important?
This is the charity for children
suffering from sexual abuse and their families.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I think that we have all learned the extent to which abuse was experienced right across Irish society. I think you would be very foolish to imagine that abuse is a thing only of the past. That's not true. We know that it's a reality in our society. Carry do incredible work and they need adequate support. So I'm surprised to hear that they're under this type of pressure. And certainly I think the government, again, make the smart investments, support those who support people who are living through this experience.
And final question, Mary Lou McDonald. A Sinn Féin government, potentially in 18 months, and it may happen, if you were to become Taoiseach or you were part of a government, what would be the top 3 things that you would deliver immediately to make a difference to the people of Limerick?
Our first and leading priority is housing. Housing. Obviously, you can't produce houses overnight, but I believe that very quickly you can make step changes in the system that will lead to much quicker delivery. In terms of rent and the huge rents that people are paying here in Limerick and beyond, we are determined to put a month's rent back in people's pockets, to cut rent that way, but also to introduce a rent freeze for 3 years. There has to be a stop to this inflation in rental costs. In terms of healthcare, I am very, very well aware that your hospital consistently has the worst record in terms of trolley count, and I am not attributing that to the incredible staff in the hospital, but it's very clear that the resourcing of the hospital is a question. It's been raised time and time again, and we're determined that the capacity in Limerick is such to deal with that. And then I suppose, thirdly, in the very immediate term, I'm conscious that the cost of living crisis hasn't gone away. You know, lots of families are struggling just literally to get from week to week. So for us, the issue of ensuring that people have a decent wage, that we tackle things like childcare provision at an affordable, or not putting it on the long finger, but to deal with it now, to deal with rent, which I have mentioned. All of these things matter to ensure that people get through winter, that people get through the next 6 months, that people then can plan ahead for a more prosperous future. So housing, immediate concerns around healthcare. By the way, we produced pre-budget submissions that set out all of the things that can be done quickly. I've mentioned the trolley account, but prescription charges, other things that are a problem for people. And then cost of living. I'm very practical. I'm an Irish mammy. You know, I know at the end of the day, you know, you can talk big politics, but it has to translate into people's homes and your ability to feed your kids, pay the bills, get by. And I would hope to bring a very, very practical approach and a very practical touch to how Sinn Féin would govern.